Okay, so I was asked a while back to do a bit of a YouTube show in regards to autism. And I thought on it for a long minute. Like, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to talk about? When I used to be the advocacy specialist, there was always a topic, something I was told to focus on. Excuse me. In regards to autism. Well, me picking the topic was something just really new. So I thought on it and thought on it. Originally, I was going to do something in regards to parents and autism. The great divide between the self-advocates like myself and the parent groups that are out there. The huge divide, the arguments, all that. But something on Twitter got me to decide to go in a different direction. See, during this COVID-19 insanity, I've been getting in touch with not only other advocates like myself, people new to the diagnosis, other adults like myself, people with kids with autism. I've been getting in touch with parents, siblings, what have you, and all of the rantings going on. You have to excuse my word vomit. Like I said, very new to this. And one of the things that I saw this morning was a gentleman I've been commenting on his tweets. And he was talking about how he brings up sometimes with other folks traits, autism traits that his son deals with. And how the response from regular neurotypical people he gets, one of them is, well, we're all a bit autistic, aren't we? Now, my default setting is to go into ranting. That is one of the most dismissive, disrespectful ways to speak to someone who is bringing up something that they have to struggle with every single day. It dismisses the struggle. It dismisses what both the autistic person and their carers have to deal with by saying, oh, well, everybody's like that. You're not. But I decided to take the higher road as opposed to doing just a hate, anger-filled rant. Let me try to lay it out for you. Yes, parents, neurotypical people. There are some things that certain individual people who are not on the spectrum share with us. There are people out there who are quote unquote normal that don't like large crowds, who have terrible fear of public speaking, who would rather remain at home, aren't real social, have their own issues with being able to communicate with others. These are obviously true. Obviously, there are other people like that out there who are not autistic. That being said, what matters here is the degrees. You can be a normal person and share these traits to an extent. But here's the difference. When you are out in a crowd and you're feeling uncomfortable, do you ever start feeling so uncomfortable that it starts to physically wear on you? I'm talking where your limbs start to hurt. Maybe you start to hyperventilate a little. You begin to get overwhelmed by this sense of claustrophobia, confusion. Everything becomes from typical white noise that we can tolerate to like a clanging, shattered glass circling around in your head. Where all of a sudden, everything just becomes completely overwhelming to the point you can no longer function. And you automatically go into flight or fight response. Fight or flight. Because if the answer is no, if it simply just makes you uncomfortable, then you're a regular neurotypical. That's the difference. You are simply uncomfortable in a crowd. We get to where we physically, mentally, emotionally cannot handle it. Like, we have to leave, because if we do not, something bad is going to happen. There can be an autistic snap. There could be an emotional explosion of some sort. Even if it affects us in a minor way, because we're just starting to feel those feelings coming on being out in the crowd. That's when maybe you'll notice we become more robotic. Parents, if you've ever noticed your kids with autism, when they hit that moment where they just become robotic, they're saying all the right words, making all the right motions, but there seems to be no feeling behind it. No feeling in the tone. The gestures seem jerky, not authentic. That's the word I'm looking for. Your kid is overwhelmed. Your kid is overwhelmed. They have hit the point that they can no longer communicate to you what they're feeling, because they are just so overwhelmed by everything else that is going on to be able to communicate to you or others, either visually and facial features or by tone, what they're feeling. Number 2, this whole aren't we all a little autistic thing. I feel like some of this is sarcastic. Some of it is people trying to come from a good place. Neurotypicals aren't trying to be insulting. I mean, my first reaction is, you freaking self-entitled. But no. I thought about it since then. They're trying to understand. They hear us talk about these traits. And they think, well, I'm a little like that. I have some of these issues come up. I'm uncomfortable in crowds. Sometimes I'm uncomfortable with certain sensory issues coming up. Sometimes I can't stand certain smells and they make me upset and they make me feel sick. They're trying to relate to us, is what they're trying to do. Some of them are being dismissive. Dismissive of our parents, dismissive of our siblings, dismissive of us. Sometimes it is sarcastic. But not always. Sometimes they really are trying to understand. And if we talk about these traits and they see them at least some level in themselves, then they do begin to think, well, maybe we are all on the spectrum. Maybe we all have autistic traits to a certain point. Now, neurotypicals, and here's where I'm going to talk to you. This is where it gets damaging. When you start comparing your experiences with these traits to ours, and you do it on a public forum, especially if you're a big name and have a large amount of influence, it creates a very distorted picture of us. All of a sudden, society as a whole either A, thinks we can never do anything, never handle anything, have no compassion, no empathy. We're essentially going to be shut-ins that have to be taken care of our whole lives and kept behind closed doors for the safety of society. Or for these other people who think they have an understanding of us and these traits, we get overestimated because these people perpetrate the image of, well, I have these issues and I can do this, 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 and this. Ergo, these people who have all these traits and have all these issues should also be able to do this, 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 and this. And when they run into situations where we can't do those things, it's too overwhelming, too much, or pushed too far, and we can't just stay and endure like a neurotypical person would who's simply uncomfortable. We have to leave, or something bad is going to happen. The neurotypical generally can take that as an insult, can feel hurt, feel like we are snubbing them in some way. And oftentimes, well, if I can do this and they can't, they're just using their autism as an excuse. They're using it as an excuse to not stay here and be able to do this, this, and this. And it gives them this sense of anger. Sometimes on Twitter they will start attacking high-functioning autistics. That sort of thing. I have no idea if I'm making any sense right now. I know this is just kind of rambling. It's just, when you say, Aren't we all a little bit autistic? You're not getting it. It goes back to degrees. Just because you have these traits and you get uncomfortable sometimes, but you can still push through because you are neurotypical and you are able to endure that extra a little longer, even though it makes you uncomfortable. Doesn't mean the high functioning person sitting next to you that you asked to be there and do those things can't. You see what I'm saying? That's the gist of what I'm trying to say. The gist is degrees. You're simply uncomfortable. Our fight or flight response got kicked in 5 minutes ago. That's what I'm trying to say.